Good afternoon. If the committee members can be finding their places, we'll get our lengthy agenda started. Before we get started, if I may defer to Representative Fugate for an opening prayer. The General Assembly's had significant loss this summer, and thank you, Representative.
Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you've allowed us to gather in here together, Lord, to just hear different things and different plans for our state. But Lord, today we come as a people with heavy hearts today, and the loss of Senator Buford and our friend Representative Carney, Lord, during this time. And we pray that you would be with their families. We pray that you would uplift them, Lord. And as that old preacher back home says, Lord, if you just pull them up in your big arms of love and love on them and let them know you're there for them, Lord, we'd appreciate it. And we pray that you'd help us through this loss. I pray, Lord, that we would always please you and honor you with our thoughts, with our actions, the way we treat each other. And I pray most of all that you'd get glory from our lives. Thank you for dying on the cross that we could be saved. We love you. We thank you for all that you do. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Representative. Welcome to the second meeting of the Interim Joint Committee on Tourism, Small Business, and Information Technology. Co-Chair Pratt and Co-Chair Schroeder are certainly happy to see you, and also the smiling faces. It's wonderful to have in-person visitors again with us. As Sasha calls the roll, please let her know if you're in person in the room or off-site. She will need to make that notation in her role.
Madam
Sasha.
Chair. Madam Chair.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Would you recognize me for a moment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to mention many of you knew former State Representative John Arnold, who served for 18 years in this body. Was a good friend to many of us, and he passed away. His funeral is tomorrow and starts at 11 o'clock. So just remember his family in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for bringing that to our attention. The sadness of the summer kind of continues on. Thank you, Representative. Sasha, please call them.
Senator Gardler, Senator Carr, Senator McDaniel, Senator Mills, Senator Southworth, Senator Storm,
Present remotely in the 21st District.
Senator Thomas, Senator Wheeler, Senator Wilson, Senator Yates,
Present from District.
Representative Baker,
Remote from the district.
Representative Beckler,
Right here.
Representative Bojanowski,
Present in the room.
Representative Branscombe,
Present in the room.
Representative Brown, Representative Callaway,
Present in the room.
Representative Donahue,
Yes, ma'am. Present.
Representative Dotson,
Present in the room.
Representative Pfister,
Present in the room.
Representative Frazier,
Present in the room.
Representative Freeland.
I'm here remotely from my home district.
Thank you. Representative Fugate,
Present in the room.
Representative Goforth, Representative Gooch,
Present in the room.
Representative Hale, Representative Heath.
Present from my district.
Thank you. Representative Huff,
Present in the room.
Representative Kirk McCormick, Representative Koenig.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Representative Lawrence, Representative Miller, Representative Palumbo.
Here in my office,
Thank you.
annex office.
Representative Raymond,
Here in my district.
Representative Reed,
Here in the room.
Representative Roberts,
Present in person.
Representative Rowland,
Present remotely.
Representative Sheldon.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Representative Stevenson,
Present in the room.
Representative Tackett Lafferty,
Present in the room.
Representative Tate,
Present remotely.
Representative Timoney,
Here in the room.
Representative Wesley, Representative White,
Here in the room.
I thought so. Co-Chair Schroeder. Co-Chair King.
Yes.
Co-Chair Pratt.
Present remotely.
Thank you.
Do we have a quorum? We do have a quorum. Thank you very much, Sasha. For anyone joining us remotely, please use your chat function to ask any questions. And if we didn't catch you in the role, you can also use that there. For anyone participating remotely, we do have your microphone muted, so please let us know if you need to be unmuted. We do have a very full agenda today. I appreciate our presenters accommodating our change of date, and we certainly do appreciate that. If Commissioner Storm and any of his guests will please be making their way to the presenters table. Do we have as they're coming forward, do we have a motion to approve our last minutes? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, like sign? Thank you. Thank you very much. The commissioner does have a full presentation for us. All of that information is linked on the LRC website. So for the sake of time, I think we're going to be going through fairly quickly. We do have two presenters today, so thank you very much for joining us today. Please introduce yourselves for the record and please proceed. Is your mic on? And pull to you.
There we go.
There's better.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, Rich Storm.
Thank you, Acting Director of the Information Education Division, Gabe Jenkins.
It's my honor to be here to serve as the Commissioner of the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources. Kentucky Fish and Wildlife has a proud history, and as most of you know, it continues to do great work across the Commonwealth. Ours is an awesome responsibility, and I'm here today to provide an overview of the sorts about the agency, which has been carved out an impressive legacy because of strong leadership, dedicated staff, willing partners, and strong unified support from sportsmen and women and conservation-minded people. Fishing and hunting and time spent in the outdoors are beneficial in many ways, and I'm going to share several examples today. We create lasting memories with families and friends, old and new. We put healthy food on the table for families. Outdoor recreation draws scores of people to the Commonwealth and creates thousands of jobs and billions of dollars into Kentucky's economy. There are many positives to talk about today. As the Commissioner moving forward, it's my vision to achieve great things and tackle challenges head on. We need to keep our eye on the ball, and 4 things that I'm committed to are affordability, consistency, modernization, and excellence. A commitment to excellence is my commitment to you, and with that, we'll begin our presentation. We'll pull our presentation up. If you know my personality, I always like to, I gotta say something funny, so I ask our info center to give me some of their classic calls, starting with Philip Williams, who is soon to retire, and we're sad to lose him. So I asked him for his top 20. I'm not gonna read all 20 today, but I'll share a few. Number 1, a lady from Kenton County called and said there's a skunk in an apartment complex with its head stuck in a Chick-fil-A cup. Number 2, got a collect call from an inmate in Bell County. I'm sorry, anybody's from Bell County here. Had a caller call and say somebody had a raccoon in a shopping cart in Louisville. And then had a caller ask if in the state of Texas, if you use a cane pole, a line worm, do you have to have a license? And Philip said, I don't know. He said, this is Kentucky. And they said, well, okay. So we'll start on the presentation. I will say this is a long presentation. I'm going to do my best to go through it, and you can ask questions along the way. You can occasionally clap if you would like, which I appreciate that. You can raise your hand if you want me to address something immediately. I want to say a special thank you to Gabe Jenkins, who's here with me today. He's here for IT support. That's one of my weaknesses, so that's why I brought Gabe to the table.
Just for the members' information, we'll let the commissioner proceed through his presentation and save any questions for the end, just so we can make sure and get through as much as you can.
Okay.
Thank you.
And our chairman of our commission's here today, Dr. Kleiner, and he's in the back of the room. Proud to have his support today too. So today's topics are going to be who we are, what we do, hunting and fishing trends, funding, agency highlights, and how you can help, whether you're a hunter or an angler. Our mission, we have to start with our missions: to conserve and protect and enhance Kentucky's fish and wildlife resources and provide outstanding opportunities for fishing, hunting, trapping, boating, shooting sports, wildlife viewing, and other related activities. Who we are. We're an agency of the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet, and we serve all Kentuckians. We have land, we have assets all across the Commonwealth, evenly distributed. We have 600 great staff, educated people with diverse backgrounds and experience. What we do, we support our mission. We own 165,000 acres in Kentucky, and we partner with more than 1 million additional acres. We assist landowners, we educate the public and youth, we restore lands, waters, and wetlands. And this next piece I'm really proud of. We have a couple videos today. This was developed in-house by a guy named O.B. Williams. No help, outside assistance. This is a testament to the talent that we have in the agency, and I'm really proud of this.
Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife. At the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources, we take those words to heart. We are conservation officers, wildlife and fisheries biologists, conservation educators, engineering, IT, communication specialists, marketers, administrators, and customer service representatives. It's our mission to conserve, protect, and enhance Kentucky's fish and wildlife resources while providing outstanding opportunities for you to enjoy hunting, fishing, trapping, boating, shooting sports, wildlife viewing, and related activities. At Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, we protect the resource and public safety by enforcing hunting, fishing, and boating laws across Kentucky, provide public hunting and fishing access through the management of more than 1 million acres of natural areas and waterways, provide quality fishing opportunities for anglers close to home by annually stocking more than 5 million fish in public waters, build and maintain public boat ramps, shooting ranges, bank fishing access areas, and other public facilities, restore streams and wetlands on private and public lands using special grants, assist private landowners with fish and wildlife habitat improvement, inform and educate millions of youth and adults through education and outreach programs. Not only are we responsible for the conservation of the few dozen species in Kentucky that are hunted, fished, or trapped, we are responsible for all of our state's incredibly diverse animal species, nearly 1,000 of them. All of this is accomplished with funding through user fees and grants instead of state taxes. The majority of the department's revenue comes from the sale of licenses and permits, federal funds, excise taxes on outdoor-related equipment, and boat registrations. Hunting, fishing, and other wildlife-related recreation generate nearly $6 billion in total economic impact to the Commonwealth, supporting about 70,000 jobs. All of us at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife seek to be good stewards of the great outdoors, leaving it in better shape than we found it. Passionate and mission-focused, that's who we are. Serving people, conserving fish and wildlife resources, that's what we do.
That video probably would have been a good one to close on. We're really thankful though for Obi and the time he put into this video. I mean, it's professionally done, and he just does a tremendous job. Fish and wildlife recreation. This generates $344 million in state and local taxes, and $373 million in federal taxes. Now, there's a lot of numbers that we're going to go over today. But I think the next slide, when it comes to fish and wildlife recreation, Obi talked about in the video $5.9 billion in total economic impact. And tourism as a whole in Kentucky is $11.8 billion of economic impact. So what we do is very significant when it comes to tourism. And we're glad to be here before this committee today. Fishing and hunting participation rates. I think you'll find this interesting. And in Kentucky, we have a 13% participation rate when it comes to fishing, 8% when it comes to hunting. That's very high compared to other states. And so we're proud of that, and I think we're moving in the right direction. Our resident license sales. This is something that next two slides I'd like you all to check out. So if you look at the upward the trends, these are COVID-19 trends that we've seen 19 to 20. We were actually up 80,000 licenses sold during the pandemic. So we were very fortunate. We didn't know what was going to happen. I'm not sure what's going to happen after this COVID bump, and obviously the pandemic and how it's going to last. Hopefully it's over. But if you look at the right chart, the gray line, that's actually youth participation rate, and it mimics what we've seen with resident license sales. Non-resident license sales. This is a question you're going to get in your districts. A great number of people care about this. So as you can see, the red line doesn't mimic the resident sales, and that's pretty simple. We had travel restrictions in the state last year, and so a number of turkey hunters specifically didn't make it to the state. But we have had consistent numbers. If you look from 15 to 18, we've been in the trending upward as far as non-residents. We have another non-resident slide here, resident versus non-resident. So if you look, 740,000 residents participate, and 140,000 non-residents participate. But what's interesting about this, the 15% non-residents create 39% of our revenue. So it's very significant. If you compare average per capita, $32 for a resident, $112 for a non-resident. And how we're funded. Many of you in this room, you already know this. 48% license sales, 36% federal grants, and boat registration. And I'm the guy that always looks at other. What's that? What's other mean? Well, actually, that's fines. We receive a pretty insignificant amount for fines, program income, donations, the Salado Center, if you've ever been there, YouTube, and surplus auctions, things of that nature. So then I'll put an et cetera on the other. Pittman-Robertson. I'm sure a few of you have heard of the Pittman-Robertson Act. It was established in 1937. So this is a federal excise tax on guns, ammo, and archery equipment. And we've seen a very consistent push in gun and ammo sales across the nation. More people, gun stores have run out of ammo the last few years, and a lot of people go out and buy guns and more guns. We don't expect this trend to change. Wildlife restoration grants. That's what PR is. Next slide. So federal grants make it possible for fish and wildlife agencies like ours to function. We do wonderful projects statewide, and without these grants, we couldn't do it. The fishing equivalent's the Dingell-Johnson Act, which was established in 1950. This is sport restoration grants for fishing-related projects. For example, when somebody buys rods, reels, tackle boxes, boats, and motors. These are a huge chunk of what we receive in terms of federal grants. So sport fish restoration grants, we better manage fish and wildlife and aquatic species across the state. Helps us to build boat ramps, improve fishing habitat, and do research. Our divisions. I don't like the word divisions, but that's what we call them at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. These are the branches of our agency. We have 7. Our fisheries, by far the largest participation, lots of water in Kentucky, over 600 miles of Ohio River. Our wildlife, we probably spend a great deal of time, probably more time with discussing wildlife than anything. Deer, turkey, elk, and bear management are some of our regular questions we have. Admin services, we have to pay our bills, we have to push paper, we have to keep records. Engineering, infrastructure, and technology, build things, ramps, keep up our old, out-of-date buildings, internet technology. I&E, information education. We'll talk about Kentucky Afield briefly in the next segments, but I&E, this is our TV show. These are our teachers that go to schools and teach kids about what we do, fish and wildlife. Law enforcement. I'm proud to say since I've been here, we've grown law enforcement by 30%. We hadn't hired a conservation officer in years. And so you probably see that in your communities. We're trying to help. And a few of you recently have had issues in your district. We've tried to help you. Marketing. Fish and wildlife agencies for years assumed that fish and wildlife sells itself. Customers like myself, I'm going to purchase a license. But how do we connect with people that don't buy that license every year? Marketing's how. And we have some really good numbers that we'd be glad to share with you. Hatcheries. I think this is fun stuff. If you all want to go on a field trip here in Frankfort, I would love to take you to Pfeiffer Fish Hatchery and show you how we raise fish. And we actually raise $5 million that go into Kentucky public waters. Really proud of that. We have a great team. We have a team that also drives the trucks. And a few of you have been on the truck before, and you've been out and you've seen what we can do. And so it's critical that we maintain these hatcheries. We have 2 in Kentucky, and there's a federal hatchery as well that we partner with. Fish habitat improvement. This is fun stuff too. So we can go out, we can take a lake that's virtually infertile, and if you see the center picture, we can take pallets, we can take Christmas trees, we can take PVC pipe, and we can build structure for successful spawns so that we can grow fish in our own lakes, and we don't solely depend on a fish hatchery to have good fishing resources in the state. If you're interested, like in the Christmas tree recycling program, we have these in many communities across the state, and we're looking for real Christmas trees, by the way. We want lakes to be reproductive on their own. It's that simple. Our Fens lakes, this is something, again, everybody in this room can be excited about. We have 44 of these lakes, 28 counties. These lakes are fishing in neighborhoods. So you don't have to have a rural Kentucky farm land or piece of land to go catch fish. I ran into a guy at one of our Fens lakes one night. He said, I'm here to catch one fish, and I'm going to go home and make a sandwich. And he did. He left long before I did. So meal opportunities, feeding people in highly populated areas, that's what this Fens Lake program is for. For those of you in Western Kentucky, you're familiar with our BAF system. I love state acronyms. Like our Kentucky Fish Center, KFC. I thought it was Kentucky Fried Chicken when I got here. This BAF system is a bioacoustic fish fence, and this was installed in 2019. We've seen some really positive research on this, but basically it's bubbles and sonar, and we're trying to create a barrier where these fish won't go from the Mississippi, the Ohio River, into Barkley and Kentucky Lake. So we have some survey results that are very promising. It is working. To what degree, I think that's yet to be determined. Kentucky Stream Mitigation Fund. Stream mitigation system is under control of the Army Corps of Engineers. It's stream loss due to developments across the state. They're paid into a mitigation fund. Originally established in the Clean Water Act in 1972 and passed on to Kentucky Fish and Wildlife in 2002 for us to oversee. Continued stream restoration. There's more than 130 miles of streams that have been restored in Kentucky's waters in 48 counties. 47 have been constructed, 5 are under construction, 17 are in the design phase, 13 are in the initial phase. This creates jobs across Kentucky, but most importantly, clean water throughout the Commonwealth. Madam Chair, in 2018, we appreciate your citation of appreciation for Kentucky Wild. Kentucky Wild was a program we started in 2018. And we know that there's 1 million people in Kentucky that love the outdoors. They love to birdwatch. They love fresh air. They like to hike. They like canoes, they like kayaks. So we developed a program to connect with a different base of people. I'd encourage each of you to check out Kentucky Wild. I think this has a tremendous upside. I actually believe that this could surpass our user base, our traditional hunters and anglers someday. It's a unique networking opportunity for us to meet with people that traditionally have not worked with Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. Black bears, this is a hot topic right now. We have bears roaming across the state. Those of you in the southeast, you know all about this. We've had some bear sightings recently in western Kentucky. These actually could be Kentucky bears. They could be Missouri bears. We don't know. But what I do want to share with you today is we have a website to go to, bearwise.org, for information pertaining how you can live with bears in your community. And a lot of people don't know what kind of problems you can have with bears. But for example, you take your trash to the end of the road, that's where your kids get on the school bus. So we do have problems. And again, those of you in the southeast, or you've already heard this before. But we want to help you with that. We want to educate you and help you live with bears in your community. Public opportunities. Do y'all know that we have private lands biologists that will come to your property for free and give you ideas as to how you can manage your lands? These people do a great job. They also help us to take care of public lands. We have public land biologists, and again, over 1 million acres. So if you're interested in these opportunities, just reach out to us. You can reach out to me, and when we close, I'll give you my email address. Boat ramps. Every legislator wants a boat ramp in their district, I'm sure. We have 170 that we're a part of. It's very significant. As you heard about the federal grants, we have an opportunity to build additional boat ramps in the state of Kentucky. And we have several access places where we need to build a ramp, but sometimes we don't have the property to make that happen. So if you're interested in that, I'll be glad to send you an application, and you can apply for a boat ramp in your district. Boat ramp construction since 2019. We had a huge event, Shawnee Park in Jefferson County. Over 15% of our anglers in the state live within a few miles of Shawnee Park in Jefferson County, so we're excited about that. We had a repair here recently at Steel Branch in Franklin County. If you want to see what a boat ramp looks like, come out and check that out. We would love to host you. Paddlecraft. How many of you have a kayak or canoe in here? This is something that I think has a high ceiling. I think it's going to continue to build. And in Madison County, we just opened up our first paddlecraft access point. I think first of many. And soon we'll be unveiling a new one in Jefferson County at McNeely Lake. These are also handicap accessible sites. So this wonderful opportunity for all Kentuckians. During the pandemic, our staff, they hustled. And I wanted a new homepage. They built a new website. And for those of you that get on our website, and I'm sure a few of you have, it was archaic. It was confusing. And again, O.B. Williams, several people in our agency, thanks to Gabe and others, we have a new user-friendly website. And we did that in-house, so we're really proud of that. We have 19 million views on our website each year. We got reach. We have over 500,000 followers on social media, and I'd like to think that they're mostly likes. I don't always follow what's going on Facebook and Twitter, but this connectivity's changed the way we communicate. YouTube, people watch Kentucky Afield on YouTube at a high rate. But importantly, when it comes to marketing, we have 400,000 emails. So we can inexpensively connect with people via email, and that's working. Our efforts during the pandemic, we did not slow down. I hope you all tuned in to some of our videos. So we continued hunter education. We taught boater safety. We had Facebook Live seminars. We did the things that we did in the past, we just did them virtually. So we actually started that just weeks into the pandemic. And I'm really proud of our educators and what they were able to pull off. I don't have the data here today, but millions of people millions of people were able to tune in last year and watch these seminars. Kentucky Afield. Have y'all seen Kentucky Afield? Everybody in here watched it before? So whenever I go somewhere with Chad Miles, they assume he's the commissioner because he's the TV show host, and I'm fine with that. He does a great job. But many of you heard of Tim Farmer. He also has another TV show. But two of the Kentucky names that help brand the Department of Fish and Wildlife. 2 million people watch Kentucky Afield per month. I think that's absolutely incredible. It's family friendly. There's no innuendo. We're not selling anything except Kentucky and opportunity. You don't see that in today's world like you used to. And I like to watch the Waltons, but it's not on anymore, but we can watch Kentucky Field. The next thing is we have Kentucky Field Magazine. I hope you subscribe to it. I'm proud to tell you that we have an artist, a self-made artist, a guy named Rick Hill. He was a fisheries technician, and he started drawing. And if you've seen a lot of Kentucky's license plates with the deer, the fish, Rick Hill actually did that. We were in the Capitol Rotunda in 2019, and we had Rick's artwork. What an asset to the state of Kentucky. A guy that just loves fish and wildlife, and I love, dad jokes and comedy. He has drawings, comedy in his office, and he has a muscle car, which is a mussel. And anyway, I'd love to share some of that with you if y'all come over to Fish and Wildlife. But Rick Hill's a treasure. He's been with us for many, many years, and he's a lot of the brains behind our Kentucky Field Magazine. Conservation camps. Another hand show. How many people have been to Kentucky Conservation Camp? We got a few. 250,000 Kentuckians have graduated from our conservation camp. We teach life skills. We have 3 camps across West Central and East, and we're open right now at a limited capacity. We teach hunter education. We teach people life skills. We're really proud of our camps, and we'd love to show you those if you'd like to come out. Hunter education, another piece. We didn't stop last year. So we had over 4,000 people that got their orange card last year while they were sitting at home. It's actually a little higher than normal. So we were excited about that. We were able to have virtual range days, and people use the NRA website to do their class portion. It's actually, if you don't have your orange card and you're born after 1974, I'd encourage you to go to the NRA's website and try to get your orange card, and I can be glad to send that to you. Life jacket loaner stations. We're excited about these. We just promoted our first one in Anderson County. And some people have said those aren't going to work. People are going to steal your life jackets. And, who came up with such an idea? Well, I'm going to tell you what. Somebody steals one of our life jackets and they don't drown, that life jacket loaner station is it's worth its weight in gold. So we hope that people put the life jackets back. We have some great sponsors that are going to help us. We've had a lot of questions asked about how can I put a life jacket loaner station in my town. We want to do this, and we've got 5 new sites, as you can see on the screen, after Beaver Lake that we're going to unveil. So we look forward to having those in your districts and your community. This is the part of the presentation where I hope you all will dive into this. How can Fish and Wildlife be better? Well, we're only as good as our people. I've been fortunate enough to work with talented people in several different places in my life. None are as passionate as the people that work at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. Most of them got a degree. I'm sure Gabe here went and got a degree because it's what they love to do. There's no other option for many of our employees. This is what they want to do. So help us attract these people. There's opportunities. We are losing some folks because of wages and all the different issues that you all hear about, but people are very happy to work at Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. I have people say all the time, I wish I made more money, wish you could help me with that, but I'm not leaving. And so we're in a unique spot to be able to share that with you. consider visiting. I sincerely mean that. Bring a committee over to Salado. We have an outdoor facility. We have an indoor facility. Or just come by and visit. We have a Fins Lake on campus. Bring your fishing pole. We'd love to have you out there. And when I get in front of the General Assembly, I have to say the next part, pension reform. I know this is tough, but I reached out to some directors in other states. I recently spoke to the director in West Virginia. Their pension contribution rate's 15%. And we know that y'all have got a lot of challenges to deal with here, but I just want to show you this in comparison. The non-hazardous employees that we have. It does make it tough. I think we've done a good job to combat that, but I just felt like, and actually some of my staff's like, don't go down there and share that with the General Assembly. Well, actually, I just think it's the point to be made. It's something that we at least need to talk about, and I'd appreciate anything that can be done. How you can help. Getting back to that, I have a lot of folks that tell me they don't hunt or fish, but they buy a license every year. I'm not asking you to do that, but there's landowners that buy a hunting and fishing license because they support us. We consistently have 80% approval ratings. So people support Kentucky Fish and Wildlife and conservation management. But join us in the outdoors. If you don't want to hunt, you don't want to clean a fish, get outdoors and take somebody with you. Mentor, be a mentee. We have all kinds of great programs. Becoming an outdoor woman. We have Hook to Cook, Field to Fork. We can help sign you up. I think, Ms. Frazier, if I remember, I think you took one of those courses not too many years ago. But our website is a litany of information. It's not as difficult to go through as it used to be. So check it out. Go to the search engine, and whatever you're looking for, hopefully we can find. And I'm going to take it to a Kentucky Wild video.
How many different types of wildlife can you name? Did you know that Kentucky is home to nearly 1,000 species of wildlife?
As Kentucky's population grows and the landscape changes, all of our wildlife face new challenges.
Many species that were once safe are now vulnerable.
The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife has a team of scientists dedicated to the monitoring and study of animals that are not hunted, fished, or trapped.
Bats,
lizards,
snakes,
salamanders,
mussels,
raptors,
songbirds,
and darters.
Current funding isn't keeping pace, and there's still a lot of work left to do.
We need to expand the community of people just like you,
who are conscious and committed to conserving Kentucky's wildlife.
We work every day to improve Kentucky's landscape so that these species can thrive.
And now there's a way for you to jump in and help.
Be our partner in this work by becoming a member of our new and exciting Kentucky Wild program.
Your involvement in Kentucky Wild will help ensure that future generations of Kentuckians can enjoy our state's wildlife.
Together we can purchase research equipment, improve the quality of habitat,
and fund survey and monitoring projects for our state's most vulnerable species.
Fortunately, we know that good wildlife management works. The recovery of the bald eagle is just one example of how people can help wildlife.
When you become a member of Kentucky Wild, we'll work side by side and do our part to keep Kentucky wild.
Help me 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 keep Kentucky wild.
Help us keep Kentucky wild.
Help me keep Kentucky wild.
Help me keep Kentucky wild.
Help me keep Kentucky wild.
And that's about as fast as I'll ever go through 45 slides. So I hope I didn't sound like the guy at the end of the commercial. But with that being said, I'm glad to try to answer any questions that you may have for me.
Do we have any questions, Sasha? Representative Gooch.
Thank you, Commissioner. It was an excellent presentation, and thank you for all that you do. And one thing you didn't really mention, I don't think, or I didn't get it, often I'm sure you're looking at what type of species of animals that are brought into the state of Kentucky to make sure that, we don't have people bringing in dangerous animals here. I know in my city in West Kentucky, right in the middle of town, not 3 blocks from the center of town, in a residential neighborhood where one neighbor has children as young as 2 years old, right next door, we have someone who is maybe, I think, even breeding something called caracal cats, C-A-R-A-C-A-L, cats. They're some type of cat that's native, I think, probably from Africa. Are you familiar with that brand? And is that something that's allowed to be in Kentucky, or are you even aware of that?
Well, I told Gabe I wasn't going to ask him a question, but that's one that I don't know anything about.
I'm familiar with the caracal. They are from Africa, but as far as their legality in Kentucky, I'm not aware, sir.
I'd like for someone to check with me and find out, and I'd maybe like something in writing as to whether or not they are actually legal to have in Kentucky, possibly breed in Kentucky, and if they are there any restrictions or that sort of thing. So if you could have someone get that information to me, I certainly would appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Representative Gooch. Representative Beckler.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you for your presentation. I have a couple questions. First of all, could we build a wall to keep the Missouri bears out? We've got them in my district.
Yeah, you get
as
that.
You know.
Yeah, they can probably climb a wall.
Yeah, build it high. Build it high. In all seriousness, I do want to thank you for getting onto the problem we had down in Livingston County with the Asian carp bow hunters. Thank you very much for that. Do you know how many you were able to talk to? How many fines were levied?
Last I checked, there were 15 citations that had been written, but I'm not sure if that's gone up.
That brings another question. When fines are levied, do people pay them? I'm very interested in whether or not both resident and non-resident folks pay those fines.
That's a really good question, and we don't receive a lot of money for fines. That's usually it's a county court issue. And so with drug epidemic, all the other things that the court system deals with, many times these violations aren't considered as serious. And so our average receipt's less than $10 for a fine, and many of them are dismissed. And so I'd like to think that, that's something that we can strengthen in the future, that some of our court systems consider these fish and game offenses very serious. So maybe it's not equitable across the state, but it'd be interesting to see how that's dealt with in your district.
If you could look into that, I'd be very interested to see.
Yeah. Would you like me to send you our fines in general?
Yeah, and kind of how it is across the state.
Yeah.
Which counties consider it important and which ones don't, and maybe we can dig into that.
Okay.
And lastly, on an earlier slide where you were showing the resident license sales, the trend was down over the years. Why is that? Do you know?
I think it's a number of things. I think it's social. I think opportunity. People have so many other things to do. My phone tells me, I'm on it 4 to 6 hours a day. I don't feel like I'm on my phone a great deal, but obviously I am. People have ball games. They have other interests. Obviously, we have more people in cities than in rural Kentucky, and so I think the participation rate's down in urban areas. But ultimately, to answer your question, I think it's a way of life. I think that's changed. I think it was a father and a mother passed their hunting and fishing down to their children, and now we have mothers and fathers that both have a job. They've got people caring for their children, and my wife and I, we've experienced the same thing. I have a daughter that asked me why Daddy hasn't taken her coyote hunting lately. it's just we're all busy, regardless of your trade. But I think it's a change in culture, and so I think we spend a lot of time talking about how do we connect with youth. I actually think we get that wrong sometimes. I think we need to talk about how do we connect with everybody. So we have a lot of people that are interested in fish and wildlife. They may be 60 years old. They like to go fishing. So we need to just connect with all Kentuckians and non-residents and bring them to our state. And if you looked at our trends, you actually saw that non-residents were on a trend to come in here a little more. So I think that speaks volumes to the way we've managed the resources in the Commonwealth. People want to come here. And so our residents may not understand how good it is in Kentucky. And so we can talk about highs and lows, but I think ultimately we're getting back to families, traditions, and way of life.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Dotson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Storm, for your presentation. Appreciate that. It's a little fuzzy for me, but maybe you can go back and explain the slide that shows the pension funding, where we have 88% Kentucky as compared to Tennessee at 15%. Clear that up for me just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay, as simply as if we had an employee that makes $50,000 a year, then we pay an additional $44,000 into that pension contribution. So for simple numbers, we'll say Tennessee, for example, they pay $10,000 for a $50,000 employee into pension. So it's difficult for us to say we're going to raise our agency's wage. I think the midpoint that passed a few years ago was a positive thing, but if we gave a 5% raise to our employees, it's going to have a 10% effect, if that makes sense, because it's nearly double. Wow. This doesn't include the other employee expenses. So 88%, we're actually happy it's 88. One point I heard it's going to be 93. But that's 88%. That's where we are with our non-hazardous employees. And to clear another thing up, we have hazardous duty employees, and they're at about half that rate. And so that's law enforcement.
Right. Thank you. And one other question: how good are we at getting people to come into Kentucky to fish and to hunt? Are we attracting a lot of people from other states?
We are, and again, if you looked at our trend pre-COVID, because I think we're going to have to throw these COVID numbers out. We had more non-residents coming into the state, but we have a steady decline of residents and getting back to way of life.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And for the sake of time, we need to limit to one question per member. Please, Representative Stevenson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all so much for being here. I love to say that I think Kentucky is as beautiful as any beach I've ever been to, and I think that we probably leave tourism dollars on the table sometimes where we could be attracting even more people to our beautiful state to enjoy it. And I know that you guys have a lot to do with keeping our state beautiful. So thank you so much for the work that you do, and thanks for being here today. I think it's no secret to anybody in this room that the department has had its share of problems over the last decade or so, and even in recent years. Auditor Harmon and even AG Cameron has had some things to say about the department. So can you just talk a little bit about things that you're doing to improve culture and improve transparency issues that you've had recently?
It's a good question. I can tell you a lot of the things that happened in the past, I'm not going to speak to because I wasn't a part of any of that rhetoric. Even the audit that Auditor Harmon came out with was, a year prior as for his inspection. But I feel like this is a Frankfurt word, but transparency. We're trying to communicate with people in ways that we never have before. We showed you that we have 400,000 email addresses. We're surveying our sportsmen and women across the state, non-residents as well. We're trying to connect with people. We want to know what they think. And some people have reached out to me and said, "Why are you sending all these surveys? We have survey fatigue. We care." And when we have a group that comes to the table, they have 15 members and they make a suggestion. Well, we may have 5,000 responses on that specific topic. And actually, in many cases, we do. So our surveys are world class. I had an executive from Toyota that checked out our surveys. She also checked out the way we handle Facebook. And she said, "Who does your war room? That's world class, what you're doing now." It's the talented staff that we have. And so we're answering questions. I'll answer any tough question. I'll do the best that I can to answer any tough question. But I feel like it's my mission to move this agency forward so that we don't talk about the past. We don't make the same mistakes, but we don't spend all the time talking about what other people did. And so I appreciate your
I
your
understand
question.
that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Tackett Lafferty, please.
I was very happy to hear you bring up your 3 conservation camps and the fact that over COVID, we've seen some of these numbers increase locally, because I have received countless phone calls over the COVID period. I have a beautiful state park in my district, and we have a golf course that it's no longer in use, and it's basically a vacant lot. And I have called many people. I've called your Camp Webb, different places to see about, is there some sort of way to bring an opportunity for people in other areas who may not want to take their children 3 hours away and leave them for a week at a time to still experience these vital life skills and hunting safety courses that you teach. I think you mentioned it earlier. A lot of people have a different lifestyle nowadays. I know every evening I'm at a baseball game or a softball field, but still during the day, I would love to be able to take my kids to a day camp that may help interest them in taking them to Camp Webb in Grayson or your camp is it Camp Wallace? And you never know if that may expand the interest in some of these conservation camps. But I've called I've called your camps, I've talked to a lot of people, and there seems to be a lot of interest. How would we develop that interest and kind of see if that's something that we can make happen?
Well, the first thing that I think of is a conversation that I had with the Knott County Judge Executive, and Representative Fugit can even speak to this, but he wanted to get local residents together in his community and basically teach some of these life skills. And then he asked if we'd help. Well, absolutely we'll help. I told him we'll create videos, we'll show up, we'll do anything we can to, move the needle in your community. And I think that maybe something similar is what you're looking for. But some people can't send their kids to camp for 5 days or 4.5 days. Well, we've got 4-H camps, we've got church camps, we've got vacation Bible school. We have all these things, and some children would have a day or two. And so I feel like we can partner with your local community, and we can help with solutions, and we can bring a conservation officer, or we can bring a conservation educator, and we can help. But I'm interested to see how this works out in Knott County, and I'm really excited. They're actually going to have they're actually going to go hunt during deer season. And so a number of us are going to show up for that, and I'd love for you to come check that out.
Well, I'd love to receive an invitation, and I'd love to be able to share it with the folks in my community, because Knott County is my neighbor, actually. I represent Floyd County, so Knott County is my neighbor. But I think, like you said, we have Bible schools, church camps, and those are mostly day camps, and that's why people are able to attend. And I just think that if we could, make these type of things available and more efficient to the new lifestyles that most people live, then I think that would be something that'd be very helpful.
And I think I'd be remiss if I didn't add, our camps are full.
Yeah.
They're full, so if we had an option where we could create a day camp during the summer, then I would certainly entertain that. But we do have all 3 camps completely full throughout the summer. They actually end next week. So.
Well, I have a perfect place for a 4th one if you'd like to.
Well,
if you'd like to speak with me afterwards.
We're going to send you an invitation to
Thank
Knott
you,
County.
Commissioner.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you. We still have 5 members in the queue. For the sake of time and knowing that we have another presentation, I'm going to respectfully ask those members to maybe email their question. Please CC me. I would love to know what your question is, and if the commissioner would CC me in any of the email responses, that will help us stay on the same page, literally. I am fascinated by how many questions we have. Literally, the page is full. So this just demonstrates that you all are important and of interest to this committee, so we certainly appreciate you being here today. Co-Chair Schroeder would like to comment before I then close, and we'll change to
Thank you, Madam
another
Chair, and
set of
I'll
presenters.
jump right to it because I know we're short on time, and like you mentioned. And so going back to the pension contribution rate, certainly there's a huge gap between number one, Kentucky, and number two, Illinois, but to offer a little bit of help, House Bill 8 from last session, messaging with our staff. My understanding is it's going to at least take your rate down to 83.97%. So, like I said, not huge, but at least a little bit of help in the right direction. So, thank you.
I'll also share with you all our payroll in 2007 was exactly the same as 2019, and that's just, we're not moving the needle. But thank you for that comment. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, and all of your staff for a stellar presentation today. I think, as you can see, our committee was fascinated with your presentation. Just as a side note, as our presenters are maybe switching out with the next set of presenters, as a note to my fellow members, I have recently given, well over the past 18 months, I guess, 4 Kentucky Wild memberships to different people for their birthday gift, and it's just been very, very popular. So I encourage you to click on that icon on the Fish and Wildlife website and learn more about that. Would our next presenters please come to the table, please? And I would like to thank Representative Stevenson for bringing this to my attention. She's going to have some remarks in a moment. I have had local constituents share with me and have questions about the iron historical markers in the district and really all across the Commonwealth since I've taken over the responsibilities and the duties of this chair. And Representative Stevenson and I have also talked about it. And so she recommended the second part of our agenda today. So I thank her for that. And after you get established there, we'll ask you to introduce yourselves for the record.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair.
Please proceed.
My name is Scott Alvey. I'm the Executive Director.
Is your mic on?
How about that?
There we go.
We'll try that one more.
you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to the committee. My name is Scott Alvey. I'm the Executive Director of the Kentucky Historical Society, and I'd like to tell everybody I have a very cool job. I get to do a lot of fun things at the Historical Society. One of those, one is it's a tough act to follow Commissioner Storm there. He has all the fun furry animals and things. And just for the record, I also spent the first part of my career working in environmental education too. So I share his passion and interest in the natural resources that we have in Kentucky, and it's great to get out there. And they tie to our history as well. So I think we have a great historic connection to the work they're doing and the work KHS is doing. I know one of the things I'd like to invite you all to is we before we hit the COVID element, we had actually hosted the legislature in the old state capitol for a day of session. I think we were celebrating President's Day when we did that. One of the thrills of my career to be able to do that, and I do hope that we have an opportunity to do that again for you. So we'll try to work out the logistics for making that happen. So it's a great place to be where history is, and I think we share that with the commissioner too, is that we both get to work in the power of the authentic. We have the real things. He has the real wildlife, the real conservation elements, and we're really working in Kentucky history, and so it's a great element for us to be with. If you're not familiar with the Kentucky Historical Society, I'm going to assume a lot of you are, and I'm going to try to go quickly. We educate and engage through Kentucky history in order to meet the challenges of the future, and we work a lot of different programs. We're a museum, we're a world-class research library, family history, genealogy, field trip destination, outreach programming, you name it. There's a lot of things that fall underneath our purview for Kentucky history. I do want to start off before I introduce my fellow panelists here is that one of the things that I just got this morning, a 2020 Kentucky tourism kind of information, 31% of people visiting Kentucky come to our cultural sites. So when you look at the power of history, we utilize a lot of, and I always try to figure out how this ties directly into the economic development, but people are coming to Kentucky because they like that authentic Kentucky history experience. And I know it goes beyond that to our art museums and to our science museums and a lot of other our cultural assets. But I do think that history plays a strong role in what brings people here and a lot of the industry that likes to have their workers come in this kind of place that appreciates their history. One of the other things that I wanted to mention as kind of a takeaway, I know we're going to focus on the historical markers program, and we've talked about this. I think going into this, one of the elements we're seeing is in the investment in our Kentucky history. This has been a long time coming for us, and we've seen, as you've all talked about with Commissioner Storm, whether it's pension reform or things like that, our general fund appropriations have gone down over the years, and how that ends up playing out in how we provide our services for Kentucky history. I hope this group will give us a little bit of insight of one particular program specifically that it has an impact on. So with me, I'm going to let my guests here introduce themselves, but they're also joining me today. So Kurt, you want to start us off?
Thank you for having me. My name's Kurt Kraus. I was the chair of the St. Paul Parish Historical Ministry. And that's kind of what got me interested and started in this whole endeavor to begin with.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Foster Ackerman, Jr. I am President and Chief Historian of what has been called the Lexington History Museum, but we've been reinventing ourselves during the shutdown, and we're now Lex History. We have visual, video, even audio ways to tell Lexington's story. In production is the first ever audio history of Lexington, so that those who are visually impaired can learn our history, not just those who are able to go to an exhibit or watch a documentary. And I'll have more on that at the end of the program.
Very good, Director Alvey. Before you get started, Representative Palumbo would like to make a comment, please. Should we try to revisit that later?
I would just like to thank Mr. Ackerman for everything he's doing at the History Museum, and appreciate his looking into the Cheapside Park issue and renaming it the Tandy Park. So thank you for everything you're doing, Foster.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Please continue.
Well, and before I turn it over to Kurt for our formal presentation, one of the things I like to point out to people, the Kentucky Historical Society is a membership organization. And so we represent a passionate group of people across the Commonwealth. Ironically, during the pandemic, I met Kurt up in our research library, and he talks to us about this project that he's going to present to you today. But it happened to coincide with work that we were also doing at KHS during the pandemic. So with that, Kurt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I'll try to be brief, but this is something I've been doing for over 3 years now, and I get a little excited about it. So the roadside marker program actually began in 1935 during the Great Depression, when Earl Wallace, who was a Lexington businessman and an engineer, encountered historic marker installations in Virginia during his trips. And he noticed that they seemed to have an impact on local interests and tourism. On his return to Kentucky, he gathered a group of colleagues and historians to discuss the formation of a permanent organization with the goal of marketing the bluegrass. The idea was popular, and soon the group incorporated as the Historical Markers Society. The Society's goal initially was to place 100 historical markers, but it was reduced primarily due to cost. Again, this was the Great Depression. It was expensive. The cost of manufacturing and placing a marker at that time, was about $2,000 to $3,000 in today's dollars. Not unlike today, actually. An extraordinary amount, especially during the Depression, as funding was obtained through donations from local businesses who were hoping to capitalize on increase in tourism. The society committees got to work quickly, raising funds and designing the markers, while the inscriptions committee, historians debated and decided on a site list that would be historic and that would include both historic and tourism interests. The marker itself, which we can see here, with the seal on of the Commonwealth prominent on top, was designed by the Society and is the prototype for markers that we have today. Next slide. Actually, we're this time. If we could go back. So we see Ashland, Beckhouse, and Mary Todd Lincoln. These are, for the most part, the original ones that they installed. Beckhouse was a little different in that it's painted, but Ashland was the first one to be placed in Kentucky. Next slide, please. Of the 25 markers planned, 21 were actually placed. In the end, the Society lacked the funds to complete its goal, and its supplier lost the master mold in bankruptcy. Despite this, theirs was the first organized effort to locate and memorialize historic sites in Kentucky. While they didn't complete their goal, they were instrumental in starting a movement that would grow and thrive beyond their efforts. Their work led to an increase in tourism and general interest in the state and provided a valuable educational opportunity for the community. Now these efforts are carried on by the Kentucky Historical Society. Next slide. In November of 2019, I conducted a survey of the original markers and found that many, now over 85 years old, have not stood the test of time. 10 are missing entirely, and the numbers are actually a little incorrect on the slide here. 10 are missing entirely. And I was dismayed to find that just 11 of the original remained in place. One of these was stolen back in 1936, shortly after it was placed. Thankfully, 4 have been updated and were replaced by the Kentucky Historical Society. Where are we? On slide 9.
One more.
Slide 9. Here we have a picture of the actual Historical Marker Society dedication at Ashland. To the left, immediately of the marker, is Lieutenant Governor Keene Johnson. And this is the only known picture of the Historical Marker Society. Okay. Here we have a few markers that probably need some attention. Of the remaining markers, many are weathered, such as Keeneland, number 2, and First Race Course, number 6. Number 14 that we've seen previously at Beckhouse had been destroyed during construction, but was repaired. Next slide. Others have been updated over the years. Marker number 3, Morgan House, was replaced by the Historical Society and the Bluegrass Trust in 2011. One could argue that the markers are historic in their own right. As we have seen, many are in need of attention, and thankfully several have been renewed or replaced through the efforts of the Kentucky Historical Society and the local community. With the original markers in such a state, it was natural to wonder in what condition and to what extent other markers placed in later years were in need of restoration. And with that, I'll give it over to Foster.
Thank you. I'm here mostly as a resource for questions, but I do want to say that Kurt contacted us about 2 years ago asking about one of these missing markers. And we realized that this was an opportunity to do a Fayette County historic marker survey to identify every historic marker, whether it's KHS, the original Marker Society, a voluntary marker, and there are some of those, even extending into equine cemeteries, which kind of fall into the same category. And so with Kurt's leadership, we are conducting a survey in Fayette County that will lead to a GPS identifier for each marker, present or former, and build towards adding that information into the tourist quiver of eras, to go back to the commissioner's metaphors, for people visiting in Lexington. And Visit Lexington, our Convention Visitors Bureau program, while it's not financially able to support this, it supports it in concept and looks forward to our result. We tell Lex History, Our short mission is to tell Lexington's story to everybody, every way. And so we're no longer focusing on just being an exhibit hall. We do temporary exhibits in other people's facilities right now, but we're doing the audio history. We're supporting a documentary history called Chronicles that Emmy Award-winning producer Doug High and head of the Kentucky Historical Society Foundation has done Volume 1. KET has aired it, and it has been nominated for a regional Emmy in the documentary category. So there is a lot going on, mostly behind the scenes, in the history world, but we attract our own group of people who are interested in Lexington history. And yesterday we brought in a family portrait that had been in a family for 7 generations of the president of the first bank in Lexington. And we've just brought that into our collection and are processing that and a couple of other family members. So I'm here to support these and to answer your questions.
Picking up where Kurt left off there, in the 1490s, in 1949, that would have been a long time ago, the marker program becomes a statewide program.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus, early supporter of the program.
The committee had its permanent headquarters at the Kentucky Historical Society and consisted of standing members from civic, history, and heritage groups, including the Kentucky Historical Society, the Filson Historical Society, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, the Daughters of the American Revolution, and various county chambers of commerce. From 1949 to 1960, the Kentucky Historical Highway Markers Committee worked with the Kentucky Department of Transportation to set roughly 150 markers across the state. The subjects, the texts, and locations of the markers were determined by a committee with consultation from historians, including Dr. Thomas Clark. In 1962, facing increased budget strain, committee turnover, and low participation, and changes at the Kentucky Historical Society, the Kentucky Historical Highway Markers Committee disbanded. Under the leadership of Colonel George M. Chin, the Kentucky Historical Society took over the day-to-day operations of the program as a function of KHS's role in the state. Since that time, we've redesigned the markers so they are larger and allow up to 66 characters of text, an early version of Twitter. Thank you. We've, in partnership with the Kentucky Department of Transportation, and that's a huge partnership, we've placed more than 2,000 markers. For most of the program's history, markers were purchased using state funds. Beginning in 1992, new markers were funded through private donations and community sponsorship. In an effort to ensure statewide opportunities for the erection of markers, the Society recruited and conferred with historical marker chairs in each Kentucky county. Applicants first had to have the approval of the chairs before applications were forwarded to the Historical Society. That practice was discontinued in the mid-2000s. Today, our historical markers program is a community-driven effort. What does that mean? It means that we rely upon the community to come to us through an application process and a review process to determine what history is going to be marked at that spot. Sometimes that application process can take over a year to complete. And believe it or not, sometimes we get applications and they're like, I have an event going next week. Can we get a marker? There is at least one marker in every Kentucky county, and our topics are as varied and wide-ranging as you can imagine. While the physical markers are a keystone of the program, the Historical Society also maintains what you see here, Explore KY History, a smartphone app and website. Here we are able to expand the histories told on the markers. The app supports multimedia resources, including images from print and object collections, which may come from the local history organizations that help support us, oral histories, videos, and audio recordings. As of May 2021, there are 875 entries, far less than the 2,500 markers we have, with more than 100,000 annual visitors to this site. We also maintain an online database for all markers at history.ky.gov, and it's relatively basic in function. In fact, it predates when I even started the Historical Society 14 years ago. But basic analytics show that Explore KY History is very well indexed among Google. What does that mean? It means that Google views this site, its information, in KHS as reputable. We have an excellent search engine optimization. So when you go in and Google any of the topics or subject matters on the markers and explore KY history, it usually returns one of your top returns for your search. So what are the challenges that we are facing today in our program? Beginning before the pandemic even began, we started to see that we were having an issue. We had at least 200 known markers that were missing or damaged. And that's just what we were aware of. The total cost of that was going to be about $310,000 and we were going to have to request that from the local community sponsors to make these changes happen. Just kind of a little breakdown, you would see that there were 11,000 in need of refurbishment, $57,000 that would need both a refurbishment and new post, 242,000 of complete replacements. And even if we were meeting that thing, it would take us at the rate we were going 20 years to clear that backlog. Jump ahead. So during the pandemic, we did an audit of our marker program. Of all 250,000 markers, we assessed their condition and their physical location, or at least the best we could. We had to reach out to community members to try to help us at least identify where they were and what were going on. 630 of those markers we identified as potentially contested subject matter or interpretive matter. And that's not only natural. Over time, the interpretation of some of these markers, some 80 years old, current research and interpretation might lead us to looking at those. However, we would anticipate that most of those, with some slight revisions, would be totally acceptable for us to continue on and refurbish. One of the elements that we also noticed is that we had a bit of a disconnect between the physical markers and the local community. And again, that's because over the history of the program that Kurt was describing and what came after that, folks have moved on. And so these markers have been around for some time, and some folks didn't even notice that they were missing a marker. So we reached out and were contacting people to make sure they would be aware that we were doing this audit and kind of finding who would be a local connection that would help us support any work that we might do to those. Let me jump back. So over the past 12 months, the team's actually starting in about January, as part of this audit, we took on the opportunity to address the fact that one, the foundry that actually produces markers had shut down due to the pandemic. The other part was we weren't able to do public gatherings to do the dedications. So we used the opportunity to take a pause, do the audit, and try to clear as much of that backlog as we possibly could do. So to date, we have serviced 82 of those markers, 58 of those being total replacements, 24 of those being a refurbishment. We tried to look and make sure that we could cover as many different counties as possible around the Commonwealth with this project. So we ended up servicing 39% of those that we had determined were missing or in need of refurbishment, and that came from KHS general funds to the amount of $146,715. By the way, there's a great little addendum to that story. When we called the foundry, and unfortunately it's not a Kentucky foundry, there's not one that is able to do that kind of work in Kentucky, up in Ohio. And we were first was like, there's no way they can handle this kind of work, even on a regular basis. And they had informed us that they had furloughed all their employees, but that if we would guarantee them that we could do this kind of work, they were able to bring their employees back to work. So it felt really good that we were able to help as part of some of the recovery for this kind of work. And also, like I mentioned a while ago, we could not do this work without the help of the Department of Transportation. Through their regional centers, they helped us with the removal, the transportation, and now the reinstallation of our marker program going forward. So they've been working really hard on this with us as well. So what about the future of this program? Well, we already know that the program enjoys the benefit of local communities raising awareness of their local history, but we want to tie that historical narrative across the entire Commonwealth. Sponsors and marker supporters often turn to KHS to validate their history. However, that validation doesn't come from the Kentucky Historical Society. That comes from the broader Kentucky history research community. We must be able to rely on this scholarship to support the placement of any new markers. The future success of the program will come from this blend of both community support and sound scholarship. So some of the things that we're looking as objectives for our new marker program I have here in front of you is one, making sure that Kentuckians can see themselves in the stories, the peoples, the places, the events, and how they are tied to that broader Kentucky history. that there's a defendable historical evidence to support these interpretations. And that's been kind of true through the program. If as Kurt was doing his research, and then you heard, it really was isolated within a small committee of people deciding what that historical interpretation was going to be. We also, as part of the review and application process, ask for this historical research and have these applicants show us the historical evidence that supports their findings and what they want to put up onto their marker. We also want to make sure that we can make connections between markers across communities, regions, and throughout the Commonwealth. And then our histories represent the diversity of Kentucky. As we were doing the audit, we noticed that we do have a fairly unbalanced story of Kentucky going on here. And so we could preference other stories that need to be told and brought forward, whether it's regional histories, whether it's simple local histories or topics.
Let me just interject one comment about the scholarship involved. I've been involved in submitting an application for a marker successfully. I've also been involved in joining genealogical heritage societies. This one's tougher. I mean, it's not just the assertion that something happened. You've got to cite an academic history or contemporary news account or something to back up what you want to put on one of these markers. So these are not a casual program.
Thank you. And I'd be happy to share stories of where it's really exciting to get with these community sponsors and actually talk through the historical evidence and help work through accuracy issues and language issues. Because again, remember, we get 600 something characters to tell this story on. But it also, again, lives on this website. So we have lots of opportunities to expand out these stories, but we want to make sure it's grounded in good historical scholarship. We want to make sure that we're leveraging the grassroots strength of this program. So where it began early with these small committees, now it has broadened its base to come from the local communities. We do so many markers. I don't know if I mentioned this, but we're putting up 20 to 30 markers a year, and I feel like what we're doing is we're touching a large number of people just temporarily. How do we take this program and make it a more meaningful impact for those local communities and drive a stronger relationship, not just with us, but also with places across the Commonwealth? How do we raise awareness of this program? And again, then we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. These are the logistical elements. How do we provide a mechanism for review as we go forward? This is kind of unprecedented, where we've had statues and monuments being looked at and markers were not far behind, where we started getting phone calls of people asking us, will you look at this marker? Is this appropriate for this to be here? Should I be worried about this being in my front yard? Things like that. And we don't really have a mechanism for that kind of review to happen. So we're working on establishing how do we go back and do that. We've always been focused on the setting of the marker. I don't know that there's been many outside of safety regions requests for a marker to be removed. And then what's the sustainability of this program, including a maintenance fund for the repair and replacement of damaged markers? And I get it. Everybody comes to you all like, hey, we need more funding. But just let me give you a little example here. And this has actually happened. You can do a marker dedication on a Saturday, and the local community has come up with the $5,000 or so to have that marker placed, and a vehicle takes that marker out on Monday. And there's no funds to put that marker back without going back to the local community. And I just can't in good conscience know that that's being good stewards of Kentucky's history to ask them to go out and foot another $3,000 bill or $5,000 bill to do that. So how do we invest in the sustainability of a program that is looking at our history across the entire Commonwealth? While I have a microphone, and Representative King gave me this opening, because I want to talk about just real briefly our investment in local history. And you have coming up, and we just passed at the last session the two commissions to form, the Sesquicentennial Commissions, where it's also part of the America 250 or the semi-quincentennial commissions. We're going to be seeing this over the next few years, and the idea of investing in local history is where the strength of that program is really going to lie. I just wanted to toss out here some of the preliminary pillars that we might rest this on is education, heritage tourism, the signature events that we have, grant programs, and our liaison to national partners. So I'm happy to answer questions about this in the marker program. But again, I just want to drive home this idea that this investment in local history is coming up over the next 5 years, and this marker program is also an important way that we can start off there.
And let me just add one final comment that occurred to me while he was talking. This will be the 5th year that I give a talk to the Lexington leadership class about the importance of knowing history to community leaders. And the best example in that half-hour presentation, is the question of Confederate monuments on the Fayette County Courthouse lawn. The mayor and every one of our council members had no idea that that was going to be an issue during their term when it exploded onto the scene. And several of us in the historic community were consulted to say, give me the context, tell me what's going on, distinguish the arguments. And that's an aspect that pertains to you all as well, because it's not just the marker program, but the understanding of the importance of knowing your history and how to apply it positively in leadership.
And that's our presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I do have one brief question, but for the sake of time, I am going to defer that. I'll just email you and follow up with you all personally for that. But I would love at this time to give Representative Stevenson the opportunity for the first question, and then we'll circle back for a final comment.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you all so much for doing this. I'm a huge history buff. I love history, and so when Kurt emailed me to tell me that he was working on this project, I was really excited. And thank you, Chairwoman King, for the opportunity for me to bring this forward to our committee. I think it's so important. I think there are just so many great things about this program. I mean, for each of us individually to know and to have these things marked, but I think it's great because it brings in tourism. I have the app on my phone. I think it's great. I think more people need to know about that. We've got to find a better way to market that app. But I also think it's great that it's there. It's good, free family fun. You know, people are looking for things to do with their kids. So, you know, you get in and you just go exploring around Kentucky. And I think too many people don't take the opportunity to do that. So let's talk about the app just a little bit and about that marketing and anything that you guys are doing, and if there's any way that we can help you to do that.
Yes, the app's a great piece. In fact, during the pandemic, we did see actual usage of it go up as families were. It was a great socially distant. You're in the car with your family, able to go out and do these tours. The app, if you log onto it, and I actually have some business cards if you'd like to help recall the URL to get to the site. But we're actually using that site and it's organized by tours. So as we add more in. And that's what we're actually facing. We talked about it in a staff meeting this morning, the idea of adding more tours. Again, only 800 and something markers are on, of the 2,500 are on there. So if we add them all, looking at my Woodford County representatives over there, I've been pushing my team to get our Woodford County ones on there. Some of them are. But the more we get on there, we see the usage rate go up quite a bit. And again, it's a great, easy way to, for families and for those who want to organize their own personal tours for those things. It's free. But also for us to engage the local communities for additional content to go onto them. So it doesn't have to all come from the Kentucky Historical Society, as we're seeing here, right? We have some passionate historians that are working towards us, and they can add and work with us to add content onto that app as well.
Very briefly, Madam Chair, we found at Lex History, back in our original physical site before we had to leave the old courthouse, but in our web experience as well, which is driving the process of revising our website, we are a regular source for homeschool children who have a history component they have to satisfy. And they are able to come to our website, their website, and do that part of their education without necessarily going to a school trip or driving to Frankfurt to see the Historic Society.
Thank you very much. Remembering that we have to vacate the room in just a moment. Senator Wheeler, do you have a brief question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess a couple comments. One, as far as a marker being taken out, would not liability insurance replace that? And then I guess second, when you talked about the 600 monuments and need a replacement and the cost associated with that, how much of that is due to deterioration and how much of that is due to, I guess, opinions by certain people that those monuments need to be revised due to some more recent complaints?
Most of the renovation type ones are not in that 600 number. That was actually a larger number for us. we wouldn't panel a review group. So some of them have come from, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. I can get those for you. We don't have, as far as community comments or input on that kind of thing. Some of that was just a cursory look at going in and looking at which ones might have some things that we should do a deeper dive into. In that case, we would consult with other historians and other groups to kind of look at that a little bit further to see if there's changes, if any. And like I said, I would imagine that there's maybe just some more modernization in language that would maybe be required, and most of those would go on without issue.
Okay, so those are basically just physical plant costs that you have on the board.
Correct.
Good question. Thank you very much. Representative Wesley, do you have a brief question? Okay, I think that's already been answered. Members take note that we will plan to meet at the Kentucky State Fair at 1 p.m. And do you all have any parting comments?
Yes, I almost missed since Commissioner Storm was doing this. I invite you to attend any marker dedication. We try very hard to send out to you letters where we're installing a marker in your area. Of the 80 that we're doing, I believe we're also trying to arrange just to make sure people are aware that the reinstallation of the refurbished markers are going back up as well. Those are ongoing now. So feel free to reach out to me if you'd like. My contact information is there. But if you get that invitation, we welcome you to come to any of these marker dedications at any time.
Yeah, I know committee members and legislators that don't happen to serve on this committee. I know they would really like to know when that's going on in their home districts. Any parting comments? May I have a motion to adjourn? We are adjourned. Hope to see you at the State Fair next month.